What do you say to a group of people on the precipice of a new year? That's what I've been thinking about. I've been thinking about, okay, what word should I give? What note should I strike? What text should we consider? What call should I make? And as I was reflecting and thinking about that, the weight of it kind of began to grow. Not only because there's something just natural about a new year that causes everyone in the world is thinking about a new year and new resolves and lose some weight and spend more time with family or whatever it may be. It's just wonderfully natural time God's built into the rhythm of life to stop, take stock, assess, and realign and readjust as needed to continue moving forward. And so I got nothing against resolves, nothing against New Year's resolutions. I love all those things. I do many of those myself. But as I was reflecting on it for us as a church family, it began to grow in its weight because I began thinking about, and everyone this is on everyone's mind as well. It's not only a new year; it's the beginning of a new decade. And as I began thinking about that, like everyone is thinking about that, it's kind of hit me like this is a big deal. I'll only get to live through 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 of these moments where I'm on the front end of a new decade, and that's a significant thing. It's significant because as we look back, even if you don't like to read, you've hopefully watched enough movies to figure out that in the last 100 years, even, decades are significant. Decades matter. We give decades names. And a lot of life happens in a decade, and a lot of things change in a decade. You won't get to the end of this new decade the same person you are now. You'll be 10 years older. I'll probably be 20 pounds heavier. All sorts of things are going to change, right? At the end of this decade, just put this in your pipe and smoke it. I will be 50. My current trajectory has me about right here at 50. It's going to be crazy. You will not be the same person in 10 years you are right now. And who you are in 10 years will be largely connected to and a result of your decisions and your choices you make today and tomorrow and Tuesday. But you won't get to the end of the decade the same. I was thinking about historically, even look at just at American history, oftentimes we go into a decade in one place and come out somewhere very different. We go into the decade strong, excited, woo, only to come out on the other side beat up, worn out, depressed, poor. We go into a decade feeling really great, and then, entire world wars have been fought where hundreds of millions of people have lost their lives inside the bookends of a decade. It's wild. We've gone into the decade robust and building and expanding and infrastructure and growing and political stability and happiness and the Rat Pack and Leave It to Beaver on the screen, only to come out on the other end, political chaos, moral compass broke off the rails. A lot can happen in a decade. And so what I wanted to do this Sunday was to invite us collectively to consider where we want to be in a decade. Now, when I say that, for some of you, you're like, oh, I love this kind of stuff. Others of you are like, I hate this kind of stuff. I get it. As much of a forward thinker as I am, I hate doing the 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 20-year plan, because I'm always like, I have no clue where I'm going to be in 5 years. There are so many variables that will happen in my life, I can't even begin to plan where I'm going to be. But here's what I do know. If I don't make a plan to be where I want to be, I'm going to end up somewhere else I probably don't want to be. And we know throughout the teaching of Scripture that the Bible is very clear that the wise man, the wise woman, makes plans. God's a planner. We've been made in His image. He calls us to make plans. So almost every year at the beginning of the year, I do kind of a one-off beginning of the year sermon. Hey, let's figure out where we want to go. This year, I just felt the need to take a few more weeks because of the weight of standing on the precipice of this new decade. at the end of this decade, this will be the most important decade of my life yet, and it's true of your life as well. At the end of this decade, my oldest daughter will be 25 this summer. My youngest son will be 17. I mean, this is the show. I go through this decade distracted. I go through this decade busy. Game over with my kids. Some of us in the room won't be here to see the next decade. This is your last turn of the decade that you'll see. And I'm not just talking to the old people in the room. Some of you here at 16, 26, 36, 52 think you have all sorts of time left. In reality, your wick has burned very short, and your time is coming because life's a vapor. None of us have the promise that we'll see the clock turn to 2030. But what we do know is we have today. And so what I'm wanting to call us to collectively as a church is to set aside the next 5 weeks and to collectively and individually consider our life, assess where we are at, think about the things that matter most to us or should matter most to us, and then intentionally build a life that would set us on a trajectory towards the things that matter most. And so I'm calling the series Vector 2020. And here's why. Vector, to chart an intentional course for a determined destination. Vector 2020. The ship of your life is going to move through this decade. You can't stop it. You can't put the brakes on. The ship of your life is going to move through this decade, and it's going to, if the Lord tarries and gives you breath and you live, the ship of your life will end up somewhere at the end of this decade. And where it ends up will largely be connected to the decisions that you make with your life. And yes, there are many things out of your control. And yes, there are many things that you can't plan for. And yes, there are many things you can't anticipate that are coming. And yes, nobody in this room has a crystal ball. But none of those things negates the imperative necessity of you intentionally charting a course to live a life that matters. Because what matters in the Christian life is not so much what happens to you, but how you respond to what happens to you. And if you're drifting aimlessly through life without a predetermined course to which you are moving towards, you will be turned, you'll be bumped, you'll be impacted, and you'll be lost by the things that are going to come into your life. And so what I want to do is to invite all of us, and I've never done this before, so it may or may not work, we'll see, but to invite all of us into just a conversation over the next 5 weeks about what really matters, what are things we should be living for, and I'm talking about in the nitty-gritty practical areas of life. We're going to get into all the corners of life. And then what would it look like to build a plan in the council of community, standing on the promises of God, being empowered by the Spirit, processing the people we know and love. What would it look like to build a life that charts a course for living our days for things that matter? That's what I want to invite us into. Vector 2020. Charting a course to live a life that makes a difference. So that's where we're going to go. And what I want to do with our remaining time is I want to kind of kick off our 5-week series that we're calling Vector 2020 with, I call it 4, but can you see this over there, Pastor Adam? Back up a little bit. I call it 4. It's actually 3 because I ran out of time and I'm kicking it to next week. So 3 things I learned about life on a mountain bike, okay? And if I was more accurate, it would be called 3 things I learned while trying to stay alive on a mountain bike. That's kind of the flavor of where we're going. Before we get there, I want to read for us 1 Corinthians 9, 24 verses 27, that will kind of, I think in a very, very helpful way, give us a vector for this morning. Chart the course and the direction for not just this morning, but the next 5 weeks, and set the tone for the posture that we want to be in as we move into these next few days in this conversation together. 1 Corinthians 9, I'm not there. Verse 24, Paul writes this, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize?" And what's he doing? He's using an analogy or a metaphor, the metaphor of a race, a foot race, to compare it to following Jesus in the Christian life. Now, we exist as a church to help more people meet Jesus for the first time, love Jesus as their Savior, and follow Him as their Lord. That's why we exist. And Paul here is comparing the act of following Jesus. See, what I love about that mission statement is the end game is a process, not a destination. The end game we want to move you toward is increasingly learning how to, in an ongoing way, in your daily life, follow Jesus, which is dynamic and exciting. Because there's no end point in the Christian life. It's not like oh, I've arrived. Woo, this is great. No, it's a journey that we're on together. And Paul is using this metaphor as a race to connect it to following Jesus. And he's saying, don't you know that in a race, everybody runs, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Now, just to release some of you who are thinking, you mean all the Christians are going to run and only one guy gets the prize? No, that's taking the metaphor too far. He's saying, look, here's the deal. Christianity is like a foot race. And you should follow Jesus like you were running the race and only one gets the prize, and you got to give it everything you have. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. I do not fight like a boxer beating the air. No, I strike a blow to my body, and I make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself would not be disqualified for the prize. That's the verse that we're going to set as the vector for our journey together. It's setting the posture that we want to be found in. As I thought about, how do I want to kick off the year? Do we want to be one of hope and rest and trust? And I was like, no, race. Race. And here's the good news that I'll speak over this decade for you before we dive in here. And it is, if you forget everything else, you take this away. The decade you go into holding all of the unknowns for you and your life is already in the bag for Jesus. You write that down. This decade is already in the bag for Jesus. He exists outside of time, and nothing that's going to come is going to be like, oh my goodness, if you'd have given me 1,000 years, which I have on my hands right now, I would have never seen that coming. Jesus will never say that. He stands outside of time, ruling over time. This is Jesus' decade. Jesus will win in this decade. Jesus will gain victory in this decade. Jesus will make himself known in this decade. The question is not whether or not Jesus is going to win in this decade. The question is, will you be with Jesus while he's winning in this decade? And so we want to design and build and structure and plan for our life, not to win, but to stay with Jesus who wins. And so I don't want there to be this angst about this decade, what could happen in the markets and the political structures and the unknowns and my kids and all that's there, and I get it. But underneath all of the conversations we're going to have about Vector and 2020 and living a life that matters, underneath all of that is the reality that Jesus wins over this decade. And if we want to walk in that victory, we need to walk with the one who is the victor. That's what this time is about. Organizing, structuring, disciplining, building our life so that we're intentionally making the things that matter most, so we can walk with Jesus. So, a few things I learned this summer. I actually came home from a bike ride, wrote down these 7 points. You're going to get 3 of them this morning. As I reflected on what I was learning about life following Jesus in riding a mountain bike. This is the bike I rode right here behind me, if you can see it. It's actually not my bike. It's Chris Newberger's bike. Let me borrow it. And this is a picture of me on that bike out in the wild. Oh, look at that. He's out in the wild. Now, you look at that picture, you think, I know what you're thinking. That is a good-looking guy. Yep, I agree. That's me. I got great form. Both feet are on the pedals. Both hands on the handlebars. Great form. That's the only form I know. And what I want you to see about this picture in relationship to your life is there's nothing about this picture that relates to the reality that's going on inside the head of that guy right there, okay? You got green shrub lushness. You got blue sky up here, flowers blossoming. I think it looks like he's smiling, okay? You look at that picture and you go, that guy's got it together. That guy looks like he knows what he's doing. Here's what's going on the inside of that guy's head right now. I think I'm going to die. That's what I'm thinking right there. I think I'm going to die. I want to die. What can we do to bring this needless pain and suffering to an end? And you know what's so terrible about the pain and suffering in this moment is you're like, I chose to be here. This was avoidable. I could be home right now. But no, I'm here. Someone told me this was fun, and now I'm here, and my son's here, and I got to save face, so I got to at least make it to the end. How's this going to work? The reason we even have this picture is because the group I was with kept having to stop to let the fat white guy catch up. So this is a picture of me mountain biking, but don't let the picture fool you. I am struggling in this picture. And many of you have 100 pictures like this on your Facebook or Instagram, where people on the outside looking and go, oh, man, they are killing it. Look at that vacation they took and the pool they've got and the cars they drive and the cute kids they have and the cookies they baked and the birthday party they threw and the game they went to and the show they caught. Man, they are killing it. They are living the life. When inside, they wish they could die. Or at least they feel like they're dying. And they're like, how can I make this pain stop? So it's interesting, from when I looked at that picture and I chuckled, because Sharon was like, oh, this is what Sharon said. Oh, it looks like you're having fun. This is what she said. She saw a picture. And I was like, there's nothing fun about that picture. This picture reminds me of pain. And oftentimes in our lives, it's like, oh, look how much fun they're having. When inside it's nothing but pain, brokenness, depression, discouragement, relational dysfunction, frustration, anger, hurt, bitterness. Don't let the picture fool you, right? What's your picture? What's your reality? So, the story was, my son he's 12. He was 12 last summer. And he's like 7'3", 290 pounds. He's huge. And it's like, hey, he's becoming a man. We need to do some more manly things. And so I told him, here's what we're going to do. We're going to exercise the head, the heart, and the hands. And so I gave him a list of 8, 9, 10 categories: sex, girls, friends, work, future, calling, Bible, Jesus, theology, school, you name it. And I wrote each category out, defined each one. I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you come up with questions in relationship to these things that you have, questions that you're curious about, things you're stuck on or confused about or just want to know more about. And then we'll go on a mountain bike ride and do some dude stuff. And if we survive, and if your daddy can still talk at the end, we'll go have a MBD, mountain bike dialogue. And we'll grab breakfast, or we'll do it at the top of the mountain, or we'll do it when we come home. Okay, great dad. So he starts writing down questions. Profound questions, by the way. My gosh. You should ask your 12-year-old or 10-year-old or 16-year-old to write down questions they have about life. It'll blow you away what they're processing in their mind and heart that you'd have no clue had you not asked. So he's writing them down, and we're doing this. We're riding our bikes, and then we're having these great conversations, our mountain bike dialogues, MBDs. And these are some thoughts that came as we experienced the mountain bike portion of the MBDs. Number one, lessons for life from a mountain bike as we kick off 2010 and 2020, this new decade together. Number one, the easy way isn't always the better way. The easy way isn't always the better way. And again, these three things I'm going to give you this week, I just want them in your head and heart as kind of directional principles as we step into this conversation about setting a vector or charting a course for life that matters. Number one, you need to know going into this year and this new decade that the easy way isn't always the better way. What do I mean? Well, there's a picture here, and in this picture is my son Levi, myself, and Demon Boy. Actually, this is Chris. But he also happens to be a personal trainer, okay? And so why I thought it would be a good idea to go bike riding with a personal trainer on my first trip out is beyond me, but that's what happened. And to Chris's credit, he's very gracious, very kind, very encouraging. The problem was 100% on my end, not his, because he's amazing. But he said, let's go riding in Leavenworth. It's a pretty mild trail. I'm like, this is great. My hometown, my home field. I'm a Leavenworth guide, home field advantage. I mean, this is my town. I mean, Icicle Canyon here, Tumwater Canyon. I shot my first bear on this ridge behind this tree right there. I got choppered in the Forest Service on this ridge. I lived on this mountain, grew up over here. Like, this is my people. Leavenworth, come on. Leavenworth, these are my people. This is my home field advantage, not a problem. 3 minutes in, I realized I made a huge mistake. A huge mistake. We go up in these trails, and he's just going along, and Levi's going along. How you doing, Dad? Fine. We get up to the top, take this picture, heading back down. We're getting close to the truck, at least I think so, and Chris is in the lead, I'm behind him, and Levi's behind me. And we come to a fork in the road, and Chris goes right. Now, the road right goes up a steep grade. I'm thinking like, why are we going up again, The left was down. That sounded better. And so I said to Chris, brother, why art thou going right? And he says, well, this is the way to the vehicle. Now, in this moment, I have a decision to make. I can follow the professional trainer, mountain bike guru, or I can go the way I think is best to go. Now, having grown up in the woods, hiked, hunted, Forest Service 6-7 years, pretty good sense of direction, pretty good sense of where I'm at in the world in the woods. I can land nav my way through things. I'm like, I think it's left. So I said, you mind if I go left? And he's like, more power to you. So I start to go left, and I say, Levi, where are you going? And Levi, because Levi is a wise young man, Levi goes, I think I'm going to go right, Dad. And he's trying to be respectful to me, but he's like, I'm going with a mountain bike guy who's been on the trail before and now follow the wheezing fat guy who's just trying to make this all end. So Levi and Chris go right. I go left thinking, schmucks. They're taking the hard path. I'm going to beat them home. I go left, and now I'm coasting. Oh, this is much better. Doing this. Oh, this is very nice. I haven't had to pedal for a long time. Wow, okay. I'm going down, 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 down. And pretty soon, my inner altimeter, is like, I think we're below the elevation of where we want to end up, you bozo. Which means now you got to go up, moron. I get down in this hole, and I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, wait, that's Ski Hill Drive. That's where the Francis used to live. Archer Park. And I'm like, are you? I went, not only did I go down below my intended destination, I went away from my intended destination. Totally frustrating, especially if you're about to die. So now I am pedaling on that stupid bike back up the hill. And I'm pedaling, and I look up ahead, and there's this old guy with a dog. And he's got a sheepdog. And the dog is like, one of those schizophrenic, out of control, steroided. What do you just feed the dog like crack in a bowl? Like this. And he's going, he sees me, and he instantly, he's like, sit. And he's looking nervous about his ability to control his dog. And now I'm nervous for it. And I'm going, sit. In the name of Jesus. Sit. Because I got no gas in the tank to outrun a rabid dog at this point, okay? So I'm going up the hill, and now the dog is under control and sitting, but you can see the tail go like, and he's just like spring-loaded to do something bad, right? And so I'm like, so help me God, if I had a gun, I'd drop that dog in his tracks to attack me. I mean, right in front of the owner, boom, brain matter on the trail, wouldn't bat an eye, sleep like a dog that night, or sleep like a baby that night. I am so frustrated at this point. I'm like, do not mess with me, dog. So I'm pedaling, and I am at this point giving everything I have because I don't want to make the dog sit any longer than the dog has the capacity to sit. And so if that pulpit is the dog, here's the speed at which I blow by this dog pedaling uphill. And I'm giving it everything I've got right now, people. I mean, all the stops have been pulled. It's full rudder dead ahead. So I go by, I get past the dog. I'm in the clear, top of the hill in front of me. I get past the dog, and he goes, okay. Boom. That little dirty bird bit me in the leg. I am not even making that up. Draws blood. I never looked back. I just kept going. Like, what could be worse? I'm in a hole. I'm far from home. I got bit by a dog. Of course I got bit by a dog. Just keep pedaling. If you're watching online, dude, you know it's your dog. I get to the top of the hill. I crest the top of the hill, and what do I see? I see the truck we rode up there in. I see Chris and my son on the tailgate laughing, frolicking, pouring water down their head. They got cups with little umbrellas in them, you know. They got the music pumping. They're having a party. I'm dying, bleeding. I pull up, they're like, bro, where'd you go? I said, to hell. And there was a dog there. I know you'd expected a cat there, but it was a dog. It was crazy. Chris goes, guess you should have gone right, huh? Too soon, buddy, too soon. Here's the point of that little story. Here's the warning for us as we go into this new year, new decade. Your desire for easy can skew your sense of direction. Your desire for easy can skew your sense of direction. I wanted easy. And with all the confidence I had in my inner compass was screwed up because the magnetism of my desire for easy was overpowering true north. And what can happen is in your life and my life, the temptation to take the path of least resistance will rise in your life. And here's what I can guarantee you. Giving in to the temptation to take the path of least resistance never ends well for you and will always result in putting you in a hole you got to climb out of. And many of you, I've talked to some of you this morning, right now, you're in the hole because you chose to take the path of least resistance. And what I'm inviting you into and encouraging you with is there is someone who loves you more than even you love you, who's willing to meet you in your hole and then pull you out of your hole and put you back on his path following him. No matter how deep your hole is, you are not in a hole that is without hope. Jesus specializes in going into the hole, killing the rabid dog, and getting you back on the path. So the warning is, beware of the desire tomorrow, because we're going to talk practicalities about how to flesh this out and build this plan out in our life. And there'll be a temptation to build a life of ease, to insulate yourself from hardship. And what I want you to hear is there is no possible way with money, fame, or fortune to insulate yourself from hardship. And if that's the vector that you set, a life of ease, two things will happen. One of the things will happen, and both of them are devastating. Either you'll accomplish it, or you won't. And either way, you'll be lost. Either you'll accomplish the life of ease. I insulated myself from pain, from suffering, and I just had an easy life. You lose because very few people who go through an easy life go through it with Jesus. Because the blessing of suffering and discomfort is that it pushes us toward the Savior. And the curse of success is that we often use it to insulate ourselves from our need for the Savior. No one committed to a vector set towards a life of ease makes a difference for Jesus in the kingdom of God. Because where the people are that Jesus wants you to meet, and where the people are that Jesus wants you to minister to, and where the people are that Jesus wants you to serve are not on the easy road, they're on the hard path. And if we're going to be serious about meeting them and reaching them and loving them and serving them, we have to be willing to step off the life is easy path and onto the life is sometimes difficult path. There may be lack of heartache or challenge on the easy path, but mark my words, friends, there is no glory on the easy path. And I want to live for glory. I don't want to live for ease. And the irony of it is that even those who've secured the easy path are not living an easy life. Because following the devil down the easy path always puts you in a hole. So, that's the warning. Here's the verse. Proverbs 6. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, and poverty will come upon you like a robber. What's the point of the proverb? If you commit your life and chart your course and build your world toward living an easy life, one, you'll become a fake and a fraud because life isn't easy, it's hard. And you have to pretend it's not. Now you're a fraud. And poverty will come upon you like a robber. This is not simply an economic statement alone. This is an axiom, it's a maxim, it's an axiom, it's a principle that applies over all of life. If you, a little sleep in your relationships, a little slumber in your marriage, a little folding of the hands in your parenting, and relational, spiritual, emotional poverty will come upon you like a robber. Economic poverty is not all that's at stake on the life of the lazy lane. Relational poverty, emotional poverty, spiritual poverty, purpose poverty, eternal poverty. There is no life of glory on the easy train. And if you set that as your life's goal, I just need life to be easier this year. You're greatly disappointed. Look at our verse that we set out at the beginning of our time together. Everyone who competes in the games goes into, what's the words? Strict training. Is there anything about the two words strict and training that sound easy to you? Everyone who participates in the games goes into strict training. Paul said, I discipline my body and keep it under my control. What's he saying? He's saying, my flesh has desires that are not of God. And I have to bring those desires and beat those desires into submission so they don't chart a course for my life of ease that moves me not towards Jesus, but away from Jesus. Jesus is going right, but that looks steep. Jesus wants me to be generous with my finances, but that looks a little steep. I think I'll coast left. Jesus wants us to open our home and be hospitable, but that looks steep. I think I'll go left. Jesus says we should be in community. But really, every week in a city group with my life sounds steep and to the right. I think I'll drift left. And so we unplug from community. Or we unplug from being generous? Or we unplug from serving using our gifts? Or we unplug from reading my Bible on a regular basis sounds steep and to the right. I'll drift left. Netflix is easier. And so instead of climbing and training and disciplining, we drift. And I just want to ring the bell on the front of this new year, on the front of this new decade. The easy path isn't always the better path. And so whatever we do together in these next 4 weeks, let's not chart a course that has as its vector, as its determined end game, easy. But here's what following Jesus is. Following Jesus, this is the application, is the full life, not the easy life. Meaning following Jesus may not be easy. In fact, he promises us that it won't be, but it's the path that leads to fullness of joy. Even if you manage to insulate yourself from difficulty for 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, 80 years, no difficulty, no financial hardships, kind of blew out the relational strife, kids kept it together, died fat and happy in my sleep instantaneously, and then to spend eternity apart from Jesus is not easy in the end. There's nothing easy about hell. But you follow up and to the right, you follow Jesus. You follow Jesus. You get to the party at the tailgate for eternity. While saps like me are still down trying to climb out of the hole. Following Jesus is not the easy life, but it is the full life. That's first application. Lesson for life from mountain bike number 2. Keep your eyes on where you want to go, not on where you're currently at. Keep your eyes on where you want to go, not on where you're currently at. I don't think I got a picture for this. I had a video, but the video didn't work. Save face, not showing you that video. We're riding down these trails, and on the way down, there's these really hard corners, switchbacks. And I'm noticing that Chris, and the other guys we didn't ride with subsequently, would just whip around these corners. And I get to these corners, and I'm like, brake, washboard, and then do one of these, and I mean, just, not the picture of grace you'd like to be. They're, whoom, and I'm like, and these corners were just killing me. And so finally, one day Chris said, he said, hey, you want to help with those corners? I was like, do tell. He said, you're not navigating the corners because your eyes are in the wrong place. You're looking at the wrong thing. And I'm like, talk to me, Goose. And he says, you're looking at the corner. And I'm like, duh. It's like, because that's what's in front of me. That's what I got to navigate. He said, no. You don't want to look at the corner. You want to look through the corner. And I'm like, do tell. He said, if you look through the corner, your periphery will catch anything you need to see, like rocks, stumps, ditches. But it'll redirect the focus of where you want to go and where your head's turned and where your momentum takes you. Lay off the brakes. Don't feather so much because you're braking because you're looking at the corner. But you'll lay off the brake if you're looking through the corner and it'll just carry right through. And I'm like, that makes no sense to me. He says, try it once. And I'm like, and if I die? He said, well, then you won't worry about doing it again. I'm like, okay. So the next corner, I'm coming up and looking at the corner. I'm like, oh, brake. And I'm entrusting Chris, my guide. I turn left and look through the corner, off the brake. Woo! Woo! I mean, you could have heard me like in Nebraska. Woo! I was like, Chris, that was awesome. And I'm like, whoom. And he's like, well, hit the brakes a little bit because I was just flying down the hill. It was the weirdest thing, and I'm sure it's true with skiing and snowboarding and other things like this, but when you're on this bike that's catapulting down the hill and a corner is coming, if you fixate on the corner, you'll crash into the corner, but if you look through the corner, boom, you'll whip through the corner. And I was like, my goodness sakes alive. That'll preach. Here's the warning. You ride into whatever you're focused on. And many of you are false prophets about your future, your relationships. Oh, I'm going to lose my job. Oh, this is going to go bad. Oh, and guess what? You ride into it. Many of you are so fixated on things that happened to you 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, and not to minimize any of that. But you'll never find healing by fixating on it. If all you do is stare at and worry over and fuss about the corners in your life, you'll never run through or ride through the corners in your life. You'll always be doing one of these, and your whole life will be just a vibrating corner, you know? So that's the warning. What's the axiom? Fixating on your problem won't fix your problem. Ever. Look at the text. Do you not know that in a race, all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to what? Win the prize. What's the focus of the race? My legs, the burning sensation, my lungs, lack of air, the outfit on the person I'm competing against. Oh, that looks nice. How come I don't have one of those? Where'd they get those shoes? My shoes suck. Those are nice. Look at that outfit. I sure bought a Camelback. None of that. Focus on the prize is how you run the race. But he doesn't stop there. Look what he says again. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. What's he doing? He said, I'm going to finish the race by focusing on the prize. There was a beam in the park, Squirrel Chuck Park. There used to be a Squirrel Tree restaurant, didn't there? Thank you so much. Squirrel Tree restaurant, ate there with my grandparents. Squirrel Chuck Park, we chuck squirrels in the park. There's a beam. Squirrel Chuck, actually, not Squirrel Chuck, sorry. Squirrel Chuck, that'd be a funny name. Squirrel Chuck, what do they do there? Well, there's a beam. It's at Squirrel Chuck Park. And the purpose of this beam is to make some people look like supermen and some people like idiots, okay? I'll let you guess what category I was in. So Chris goes, hey, watch this. He gets and he rides the beam boom, all the way across like it was nothing. Levi goes, oh, I bet I could do that. Levi rides his bike all the way across, no big deal. I'm like, well, I could do that. I get on the beam. The beam's like a ½ inch wide. And it's like 10 or 15 feet off the ground. About like that. And I'm riding it, and I'm like, whoa, ah! I fall off. And I'm like, ah, and Chris goes, did it again. I go, did what? He goes, put your eyes on the wrong thing. I'm like, do tell, sensei. He says, look to the end of the beam, and you'll make it to the end of the beam. Okay, right up. And I'm like, I don't want to look at the end of the beam because the danger is at my feet. The danger is where my tires could slip off. No, Josh, look at the beam. So try again. Pretty soon, I look at the end of the beam, and what do you know what? That dumb bike went all the way down to the end of the beam. Why is that? When you take your eyes off the end, you won't make it to the end. You want to make it to the end, you got to fixate your gaze on the end. You want to make it so as to win the prize, you got to fix your gaze on the prize. Look what Paul says in this next verse. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly. No. I don't fight like a boxer beating the air. I discipline my body and keep it under control so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified. Winning the race, gaining the prize, not being disqualified, that's what Paul was riveting his eyes upon that helped him ride through the suffering of, shipwrecks. Being whipped and beaten and scourged. Being stoned to death. Being run out of towns. Having a price put on his head. Being in prison for years of his life because he preached the gospel. Have any of you in this room gone through any of that for Jesus' sake? And yet Paul endured all of it because his eyes were focused not on the corner he was riding in, but the prize to which he was riding towards. And you go into this new year and suffering will come and hard times will come. And some of you are in the middle of them right now. And my invitation to you is hard times are real and suffering is real and challenges are real. And yes, we need to deal with them. We need to confess sin. We need to make a plan. We're going to do all of that. But in all of that, let us not take our gaze off of Jesus. Because No one's discouraged and depressed whose eyes are on Jesus. You put your eyes on your challenge or your addiction or your brokenness or your fill in the blank, you're going to be discouraged. Because there's no hope looking at those things. There is one place, one name that you can look to and gaze upon and run toward, in which there can be found hope. And it's not your problem or your friends, it's Jesus Christ. Come on, you can thank the Lord for that. And so the bell we're ringing and the note we're striking is, hey, look, here's the deal. Don't give in to the temptation to take the path of least resistance. Be willing to follow Jesus into the hard things. And when they come, keep your eyes on Jesus, not the hard things. Look what Paul's saying here. He's comparing the follower of Jesus to the runners of a race. And he's like, look, here's the deal. As I look at athletes around me in my day, this is Paul saying this, I see all of them working hard, disciplined, and focused, and they're all running for a stupid medal that will rust and burn up in the end. We're all running a race with eternal prizes on the line, and yet they're more dedicated, working harder, and more committed and focused than we are. What's the deal? He makes a good point. Those of us who've been saved by Jesus, called to follow Jesus, given the privilege and responsibility of carrying out the mission of Jesus, should be the most dedicated, committed, focused, passionate people this town knows. Not because we have to work for the Father's approval, but because we've been given the Father's approval. Remember the beautiful parable of the prodigal son? The kiss of blessing from the Father didn't come after the prodigal son got his act together. It came in response to him coming home before he'd done anything righteous yet. You and I, in Christ, have the blessing of the Father, and it's that motivation and that confidence and security that should give us motivation to stand up again for the 20th time and begin climbing out of the pit of despair or discouragement or repeated brokenness or failure that we continue to slide back into and say, by God's grace, I will not be a victim, I will be a victor. That's the posture of the child of God. And that's the invitation he's giving to us in these days, in this moment in time as a church family. To say there are eternal things on the line here. I will make my life count for what matters most. So help me God. And that's what we want to take a few weeks to together consider. And each of us will work that out differently. Each of us have our own unique challenges and brokenness and hang-ups and past stuff. I get all of that. But there is a path forward to victory available to every person here. And I, for one, am unwilling not to attempt to build my life around walking that road, following the one who already has this decade in the bag. Victory secured for the ones who are with him in the end. Anybody want to be with Jesus at the end of the decade? That's where I want to be. Come on. Anybody want to be with Jesus at the end of the decade? Come on. Anybody want more people to be with Jesus at the end of the decade? Come on. Woo! Man, I can get fired up about that. Last. Number 3, the harder the climb, the better the view. The harder the climb, the better the view. Here's a story. This is a picture of us up. At the end of a ride, somebody mistakenly called Stairway to Heaven. Now, that's not the name I would have given it on the way up. I agree with the stairway part. Heaven part, not so much. We get to the end, and there's this view. Here's what I found so fascinating. Levi and I sat down, and we looked at all of our rides at the end of the year. We said, hey, which ones are our favorite? Which ones we want to do again? Which ones were our favorite? Which ones were the most rewarding? And to the ride, here's what we found independently, and then together we compared our notes. All of our favorite rides were all the hardest rides. Isn't that crazy? Not one easy ride made the list for our favorite. Now, had you asked me to make the list in the middle of the ride, I hate Stairway to Heaven. Heaven's a dumb name. I hate stairs. I hate Stairway to Heaven. I hate how it sounds. I hate how it feels. I hate this mountain right now. I hate the sky that's mocking me. The sun. Whose idea was the sun? It is so hot out here. I mean, I was not in a good place halfway up Stairway to Heaven. And many of us are not in a good place on our way to heaven right now. But here's the promise, friend. The view coming for those who stay in the hard path with Jesus worth every drop of sweat. We sat at the top of this mountain. It's crazy. If you've read any of C.S. Lewis, he talks about heaven. And when we get to heaven, all of life will be like that of a bad dream. If you've read any of C.S. Lewis, you know what I mean when he says, when you're in a bad dream, it's so real in the moment. It's so visceral. And it feels like that is your reality. And then somewhere in the dream, at some point, sometimes, some of us go, oh, hey, I think this is a dream. And instantly, all of the bite and the terror of the dream goes away because we know that what we're in is just a dream and not reality, and soon we'll end the dream and we'll wake up to reality, which is not the dream. You ever had one of those dreams? And so now you can kind of enjoy the terror. You're like, they're shooting bullets at me. Fire away, buddy. Take your best shot. All my dreams are war dreams, by the way. So all the women are like, what? He's shooting? What? C.S. Lewis says heaven will be like that. We'll get to heaven, and in a nanosecond, all that which seems so hard and so difficult and so life-altering and unsurvivable will be like a dream that we wake up from and go, this is reality. And I had that experience at the top of the mountain. You're dying on the way up, and you get up there, and 30 seconds into beholding the beauty that we live in the middle of, by the way. I mean, shout out. If you're watching online, don't move here. It's terrible. It's ugly. If you're going to fly here, just keep flying. We'll minister to you online where you're at. But if you live here, my gosh, best kept secret. I mean, are you kidding me? Wenatchee, Washington? What we get to enjoy here in this town, this valley, in this place? And a 10-minute drive and a 2-hour mountain bike ride, and I'm looking at that, and all of a sudden I'm like, that was a great ride. We should do this again. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And Levi's like, who are you? I'm like, I've been reborn, brother. That's heaven. That's heaven, man. Your life's hard, difficult, you're sweating, you're bleeding sweat right now. I guarantee the moment you step into eternity, you'll be like, woo, worth it. And for many, we wish we could have done it again. I don't want to get to heaven and go, gosh, I took the easy road. This would have been worth taking the hard road. And see, Paul says the same thing, doesn't he? In Romans 8. For I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us in Jesus in eternity. Friends, that's the prize. That's the vector. That's the destination that we want to collectively and individually set for ourselves and then work it back and go, what kind of life would I live as a follower of that King if I took what he said to be true about the world I live in? And as we set aside a few weeks to have that conversation, I believe God is going to reveal and unveil and give dreams and give visions and give new life to many of you who have felt stuck for how to move forward and step into a life of meaning and purpose where you are at right now. I have that conviction in my bones for this church family. You know, in 4 months, we're going to step into a new church home. Can you believe that? And it will have individually and collectively been one of the hardest things we've ever done. Many of us have given until it hurts, gone without, been sacrificially generous. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done. It's come with 1,000 pangs and hundreds of sleepless nights and dozens of stressful moments and 10 million decisions. And as we come to the top of the vista that we've been working towards already, I can feel myself going, oh, I'd do that again. Oh, that was so worth it. I can tell from here that the view is going to be worth it. And I'm telling you what, friends, when we arrive at that vista, I believe what we will see is that, oh my goodness, look how many more vistas there are to climb. God's just getting started. We're not building a home to land there, people. We're building a home to launch from for a continued lifetime of gospel mission in our town, in our valley, in our region, in our state, in our part of the world. God's called us to, and I'm saying I'm in for that. And if you're in for that, you come back next week, and we're going to start the journey of building a plan for ourselves and your life that could give us a vector towards a life that matters. I really hope you come back. It's going to be a really exciting 4 weeks.